Hello and thank you for watching. My name is Heather Alexandra, and today we're going to talk about first-person games and how their animations can still show us a lot about our characters. I was playing Destiny 2 the other day, and I was doing public events. After a while I got a little bit bored and decided it would be fun to punch every enemy I came across. I was right. It was amazing. Punching people in that game feels great. So I wanted to sit down and figure out exactly why I still felt like an awesome hero even though I wasn't using any of my cool weapons. First-person games place players right inside the body of their avatars. First-person games like Overwatch and Destiny show how small touches in character animation say a lot about the characters that we play, even if we can't see their faces. Here's my quick disclaimer. I am not an animator, so some of what we're doing here is a little bit rough and a lot of my frame counts are estimates. But in order for me to understand why Destiny 2 was so fun in that moment, I thought, hey, let's look at those animations. So that's what we're gonna do. To examine how first-person animation can express personality and character, let's start by looking at those really cool Destiny 2 melee animations. First, we're going to break down those animations into their parts. I decided that there's basically 3 parts to any melee animation: the time it takes for a character to extend their attack, how long they hold that attack, and then how long it takes for them to retract that attack and reset. All of these things can change, and all of those changes tell us a little bit about our characters. In general, Guardians strike fast, hold their animations long for dramatic effect, and then take a little bit of time to reset. Now, that sounds like a lot, but it's actually really quick. Each animation only takes slightly over 1 second, but there's also very little flourish. Guardians are these well-honed warriors of the light, ready to burst out at any minute to strike their enemies. Each class functions a little bit differently with their animations though, so let's look at that. Hunters are really quick and they're eager to strike again. They take roughly 6 frames to stab their knife, then they hold it for 4 frames before retracting with a dramatic yanking motion that takes roughly 8 to 10 frames. Warlocks attack a little bit faster, or at least the animation feels that way. They take only around 5 frames to strike, but they hold their pose for nearly 10 whole frames before retracting and resetting in about 8. Titans are just brutal, though. Their punch connects in 3 frames, and it snaps out and holds for 9 before retracting in roughly 10. What do all of these small differences in melee animation tell us about each class? Well, Hunters are noteworthy for holding their animation the shortest amount of time. They attack quickly and then they retract. They're swift and precise, which fits the mold for a sneaky rogue class. There's a little bit of extra movement when they retract their attack, and it's not really playful, but it does show a lot of control. These Guardians move like assassins, and their animations match up to that. Warlocks are arguably the clumsiest of the bunch, which is kind of ironic because the lore paints them as mystical masters of the light. Part of this is because their animation is held out longer than Hunters, but it mostly has to do with how the animation looks. Hunters twist their arms before extending to strike with their knife. Warlocks just sort of launch their palm directly in front of them. There's this nice big flash that showcases their magical power, but the straight line is definitely less dynamic action. It's actually a little bit boring by comparison, but it's also no nonsense. Warlocks are basically warrior monks, and they don't waste a lot of time with anything that's too flashy. Titans end up feeling the most powerful out of any 3 class, and that's mostly because their animation, when they extend their arm, is really quick. On the 2nd frame of their animation, they've drawn back to punch, and on the 3rd, they've completely thrown it out there. It's pretty straightforward like the Warlock, but it bends ever so slightly on the follow-through as well, which gives it a more attractive line of action. Titans are noteworthy for their heavy armor, and their quick animation doubles down on this lack of refinement and grace to create something like a wrecking ball of a punch that has a lot of impact. Destiny 2 isn't the only first-person game that uses animations to show character, though. Let's look at some fun games that I really like. So, Overwatch. Overwatch uses Tracer's animation to showcase her personality really well. Tracer's animation takes about 8 frames for the extension and when she holds it out for her melee animation, but her retraction is roughly double to that. It's closer to around 20 frames, and she spends most of that time twirling her guns before resetting. It's a really dramatic and flashy animation. She's showing off in the middle of the battle like it's some sort of parlor trick. Tracer takes a lot more time before resetting her attack than Destiny 2's Guardian. Guardians. Compared to Guardians, she's much more cocky. Ironically, she's actually not in nearly as much of a rush as they are. She's in control of the fight, and maybe a bit arrogantly, is taking some extra time to grandstand. Meanwhile, the melee animations of Titanfall 2's Jack Cooper show that he has a lot to prove. When he punches, there's 4 whole frames where he braces with his offhand before a snappy 7-frame punch that has a ton of curve. It has an amazing line of action. It's showy and unrestrained. Cooper plays everything fast and loose, so his animation is brash, bold, and maybe even a little excessive. He's not highly trained either, so he has this very noticeable lack of control. And we figured out all of that just by looking at character animations. By analyzing these characters' animations, we don't just get a sense of how they fight, we also get a snapshot of who they are. Tracer is cocky and flashy, while Destiny's Guardians are focused and stern. Discerning character personality through animations often comes down to just a few spare frames, but those small differences can have a drastic effect.